So let's talk about creating a contract. A contract like this can already be deployed. But what's the value for my number after the deployment? It's just 0 because we are not setting it anywhere. But Solidity gives us a way to set the smart contract state up on creating the contract. To set a variable when the contract is created, you could define a constructor with the constructor keyword here. So here we give our number a starting value. And when you deploy this contract, inside the transaction data of the deployment, you now not only have to pass the smart contract bytecode, but also the number value here. Note that you can only have one constructor function. And if you declare one, then you have to provide all the data that the constructor is expecting for a successful deployment. Okay, that was it. There's not much more to constructors. But let's now start to implement our ERC20. We have the tools to start with the first 4 functions here: total supply, name, symbol, and decimals. So let's create now an ERC20 contract in the project we previously set up. So in the contracts folder, create a new file, erc20.sol. And now if you remember, first we have to define the license. And we again just use MIT. And now we can define the Solidity version. And now we can actually start the contract. Let's call it ERC20. And now first we can define the state variables. So we could just define all those variables as public. So UN256 public total supply, string public name, string public symbol, and uint8 public decimals. And of course we have to set the value of these variables. So for that we use the constructor. So let's type constructor. And now this takes in the variables here. So of course we need the name and the symbol. Don't worry about what this memory here means. We'll discuss that a bit later on. And let's set this actually. So name equals the name that we pass, and symbol equals the symbol that we passed. And now for decimals, what we're instead actually just going to do is hard code it as a view function. So function decimals and we return 18 and we remove this. And this is actually just a little bit cheaper from a gas perspective. That's why we do it like this. But we could have, of course, used a state variable here as well. Okay, so this is the beginning of our ERC20 contract. And of course, we actually have to implement the transfer function. And to do that, we have to talk about a few more concepts first. And one thing I just realized is if you, like me, get this error here in Visual Studio Code that says something like source file requires different compiler version, that means that the Solidity extension here is using a different compiler version than what you stated here. And to change that, you can just run a command here that says change workspace compiler version and choose the one that you had or latest, and then that will resolve the warning.